Greetings, everyone. It's me, Robert Phoenix, and we are back for another edition of the Astro Weather, which we dive into here Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometimes Fridays. We'll get a little bit of the Astro Weather on Sunday night with the Sunday Night Astro Live, which we did not do this last Sunday night since it was Easter. We took the night off, and I hope you enjoyed the little bunny interlude. So instead of going down the rabbit hole, we brought the rabbits to you. Anyway, I sincerely hope that everybody is navigating gracefully wherever you are in this weird and getting weirder world all the time. And we spend about a half an hour, maybe 40 minutes here, try to sort things out, put some pieces together, and give you a bit of a roadmap for the day ahead and look at what's going on out there for the rest of the so-called world from the big picture perspective. And we also bring in a star of the day if you're new here, and we talk about somebody who was born on this day and make heads and tails of their chart. And today we have a very interesting one with some interesting social ramifications. So with that, please hit the like, subscribe if you haven't, resubscribe because there's a chance that they'll unsubscribe you. It's a common practice around here. And if you feel so inclined, there's a link where you can actually buy me a cup of coffee. And for everyone that has, thank you so much for doing that. And I just want to thank everybody for being here. It's always a great blessing to show up and see people congregating and really having a fine conversation amongst one another. Not always agreeable, but that's okay. That's okay. You can agree to disagree. It's better to have the platform to be disagreeable than to have somebody tell you that your certain words or topics are off limits. And it's no way to live. That's a very Aries kind of statement, by the way. I'll be on with, quite frankly, tomorrow at the beginning of his show. I'll be on for about a half an hour, I think. And we're talking red heifer, building that altar over there in the Holy Land. Anyway, we'll get into it. But for now, we're going to get into the Astro Weather. Weather. Astro Weather. Let's see. Let me bring it in here. Hold on. All right. Here we go. Are we feeling the eclipse vibes yet? Ooh, the eclipse. Did you know we're having an eclipse? Were you guys aware of that? It's true. We're having an eclipse next Monday. If you happen to be in the Hill Country on Saturday, I will be speaking at an event in the Hill Country in Dripping Springs. It is being sponsored by the Shift Foundation. It's a 3-day event, camping, all kinds of stuff going on. I'll be there, and I'll be speaking at 11:30. I think there's going to be a 20-minute video of it. So if you don't go, well, you'll eventually see it. Okay, here we go. We got the sun right there, 13 Aries, so we're talking second decan. And everything for the next 7 days tends to take on a dramatic significance. Actually, 6 days. A dramatic significance. So 6 days from now brings us into the 8th, which puts us right on the cusp of the second and third decan of Aries. We're going to call it the Sagittarian decan. So for now, expect lots of drama. Let's be honest here. Have we had a day where there hasn't been drama? Every day there's clearly something of note. And I don't know how people's adrenal glands are still functioning, to be honest with you. Because we live in a hyper stimulated, not simulated, although there is that hyper stimulated society with access to even the most mundane bits of information. And we have to ask ourselves, were these mundane bits of information always there? And we just didn't have access to it. And now that we have the internet, we have access to all kinds of distractions. Or are we living in a time where those distractions keep coming at us at breakneck speed? And we are at a place where we have a very difficult time assimilating all of these distractions. But they all come with a dose of drama. And we're in a dramatic phase here. And with the Aries, we have urgency. There's an urgency with Aries. And then the second decan, it's urgency by royal decree or top down. And we've been here for a few days now, right? So when the resident in chief decided that Sunday was going to be Trans Visibility Day, that's a very dramatic departure, isn't it? From what the day normally represents? I'd say so. It's a very dramatic departure. Now, of course, there's all kinds of denial around it, but that's just one aspect about what I'm talking about, or one kind of example of what I'm talking about. So we're getting real close to that true node at 15. This is the conjoining, right, of the sun with the uh, north node, which is the ascending plane of the moon in the nodal axis. Here comes the moon. Here comes the moon. And eventually the moon is going to show up right there. And that's going to be on the 8th of April, right? Almost said August, right there. And that's where we go into major eclipse. So we are in the pre-eclipse phase. And for today, with the moon in a Capricorn, flinty Capricorn, that austere moon, this moon that's built for survival. Today is a day where, especially as the moon progresses through these degrees today and going into tonight, that there is more tension, more emotional tension, especially later today when we get into the harder square with retrograde Mercury in Aries. Here's what I'll say about that. From a personal standpoint, if you theoretically, over the next 24 hours, we'll go 24 hours, over the next 24 hours, if you think you have done something, made a mistake, or had some kind of an error in judgment, wait. Just wait and try not to be um, too hard on yourself. Just wait, because there's a chance that if you wait long enough, now look, if you've done something and you need to take accountability for it, that's another story altogether. But this is about the domino effect or the outcome of whatever kind of decision or action you take that's based on, I would say, protecting your emotions, right? I mean, it's weird because when you get into the moon in Cancer and squaring Mercury, that's really touchy, right? Cancer's really touchy. But with the moon in Capricorn squaring Mercury, there's almost a type of indifference but it's not indifference in the way that the Aquarian moon would be, kind of detached and observational. Um, there is and I'm not, again, just file this way, that there is almost a thoughtlessness with this moon Mercury square. Like it's something that's done out of survival or done out of self-preservation, but it's not done out of protection. Those are two different things. Like the moon in Cancer wants to defend its territory. The moon in Capricorn wants to defend its position. And those are two different things. So we have a lot of position defending with this moon in Capricorn. It'd be interesting. I don't pay much attention to these things anymore because they're just a clown show. But it'll be interesting to see what Karine Jean-Pierre comes up with press conferences. Maybe she already did one yesterday. I don't know. And so there is a high degree of what I would say thoughtlessness with this moon Mercury square. So let's say it happens to you. Let's say somebody dumps on you and they're just, being efficient or expedient or, again, defending their position. Right. So at the very least, you kind of know what the energy is about. And maybe you don't have to personalize it. And I also feel like when we're in a super heightened period of time, that when we have an aspect like this, it's not uncommon for people to revert into a survival mode. And that's what this moon square Mercury is about. It's like a survival mode. It'll be interesting to see what the preppers do over the next few days. Keep an eye on your grocery stores. I was in the local HEB and there were people buying lots of water over the last couple of days. And so that's part of this too, right? Now, the retrograde part is if something is said and or done, wait, because there's a very good chance that the outcome of the thing will not be revealed for a while. And that, I mean, this is just for this square, right? We're coming into this cardinal square. So if you wait 3.5 weeks, might even be less than that, you'll see that whatever action, thought, um, action or thought that comes through your channel, whether it's through you or another person, that there is some kind of dramatic pullback and say, oh, I wish I could put the toothpaste back in the tube. Just wait. Try not to be harshly critical, especially if it's you. If it's somebody else, it's a bit more challenging if it's somebody else. Um, and I don't know if there's any benefit to understanding that people will be acting out of self-preservation more over the next 24 hours. Maybe, maybe, it's one of those things where, well, okay, well, I know what the reason is and I know what the causality is, but does it make it any better for me? Maybe in the long run, it does. In the short term, it always feels like you're the one holding the bag because you have to take into account that this person is going through this and that and this and that and this and that. And there's almost a penalty that a person pays for higher awareness perception, consciousness, and accountability. You're running around with a bunch of people that are less conscious than you. You understand, what's the maxim? Forgive them for they know not what they do, right? This is kind of what we're talking about here. From a collective standpoint, I don't really like this energy. This is to me, this energy over the course of the next 24 hours feels like a power grab, and we are in war territory here. And especially with Venus approaching the sun in Aries. So that'll be there in 3 days. And we have Mercury retrograde. So we're going to have Mercury, Chiron, True Node, Sun, and Venus all in Aries. It's a pretty loaded deck for conflict, conflagration, the aggression. Aggression is definitely in the air. Aries, the sign of the individual, highly charged. Even the sun is in square with the moon today, right? And the moon will separate itself out. But again, there's this tension in the air today. So this is a big power grab day. And whenever there's a crisis, never let a good crisis go to waste. People are there to pounce on the crisis, acquire more territory, whatever that is. It could be physical territory. It could be organizational territory. And there's a lot of that going on here. Aries that's what Aries does. Aries conquers new lands. And there's not a lot of, I would say, here's the energy. Okay, we're going to justify what we're doing because, it fits the greater good, right? And if you don't like it, well, fuck off. That's kind of how the energy is today. And even going into tomorrow, we're doing these things for your own best interest. Now go fuck off. Anytime we were going to Aries territory, we're talking about guns, firearms, Second Amendment, all that's on the table. We have the sun coming up in 6 days. Well, it's almost eclipse town, isn't it? On that conjunction of Chiron, also in Aries. And there just seems to be so many. Look, there are people say, well, it's going to be another Y2K and nothing will happen. I don't know about that. I really don't know about that. The other thing too is the long tail of an eclipse. And no, don't pay attention to the transits. The transits we're not looking at the outside ring. Because some people are saying, well, what about the transits? No, don't worry about that. That's just a leftover from where we're going. Don't pay any attention to anything outside this ring. Do not pay any attention. This is a no-go zone. There's some people who think that the eclipse is going to be like a Y2K event. And on the surface, these things, oh, gee, well, we just had the eclipse and the result of this. Just wait. Just wait. If you go back and look at the eclipse in 2017, were the effects of that eclipse felt immediately? No. But if you look at it now, it's clear. The country was sliced right in two. Left, right, Republican, Democrat, straight, 50 definitions, right? Like that happened. And we've been living in a house divided since that eclipse. So just keep in mind that there is a tail for the eclipse, and sometimes it's a long tail. We have some good things going on today. Venus is getting very close to Neptune. So there's a lot of compassion and empathy, and there's a lot of what I would call Christian energy in the air. And did a webinar on Saturday. And all you members, I'm working on sending you the link. I just have to convert some tables in the email list, and we'll get that out today. But one of the things that I talked about both during the webinar and on Friday's show is Saturn in Pisces, and Saturn being like the Hierophant or the Pope, right? This would be the Hierophant or the Pope, and this and in in Pisces we have the Christian or Christian energy. So this whole Christ is King uh, sentiment is very Saturn in Pisces, very Saturn in Pisces, and Mars is coming up here, and we'll have a Mars Saturn conjunction during the eclipse, which from a social standpoint, means to me that's highly controlling, like logjam. Saturn Mars conjunctions are great if you have Saturn conjuncting Mars in your chart. It's a difficult transit, but if you have something that you really need to work on and get focused, Saturn Mars conjunctions can be really good. Sometimes these things are, not always easy, but if you work through it and work on it, you will get a lot done. You can't, there's not a lot of room for play or fun with a Saturn Mars conjunction. This is Saturn transiting on Mars. But again, Saturn Mars here conjuncting, like the the best part about this would be people taking responsibility for their religious and spiritual sovereignty. That would be to me the ultimate kind of manifestation of that, right? Like, okay, there's God, and there's us, and we are supposed to be uh, ambassadors and vessels for the Spirit of God, and so as a result of that, action, energy, moving forward with that spirit, that's Mars, right? And taking responsibility and accountability for it. That's, to me, that's the best. That is the best manifestation of it. The worst manifestation is when the system plays God and the system tells you what to do. And the system defines what morality is, or the system defines um, what your belief systems are going to be, or what you're going to have faith in. So this is a really interesting conjunction. Very interesting conjunction. This is taking responsibility for your relationship with the divine, or some other agency taking responsibility or taking that position for you. It's very interesting, and it's happening on the eclipse. So for all of you people out there that are into this whole idea of sovereignty, uh, and I'm not talking. I mean, does it mean you go down and reclaim your name and uh, you know basically burn your straw man in effigy? I mean, if you want to go there, that's fine. But really, sovereignty in the sense that there is this idea that everything starts and ends with you, and that you're responsible for your own spiritual well-being, and that you're responsible for your connection with the divine, your connection with God. There's nobody else, right? Or you abdicate that position, and then you allow the institutional hierophants to tell you what you can and can't do. We're coming up on this. It's all these are parts of a bigger picture, right? It's a fractal of a bigger picture. Um, I do like this Venus Neptune energy today, and even the sextile to the moon. Be kind to elders. This is a Be Kind to Elders Day. I feel like we live in a society, after the passing of my mother, or even not even after the passing, but with her being here and being a part of my life, I got to, have a contact. It all started in February of last year, not this last year, but 2023, where she started to get sick, and I started to have a lot more contact with her peer group through her church. And most of these people were older, and um, it really struck me that these people are just cut from different cloths, and they have different values, and they're good people, right? They're just good people, and I may not agree with them politically. Some of them tend to be much more liberal, but they're good people, and this is kind of what I'm getting at here. In our culture, we tend to discard the elderly very quickly. And this is one of those days where, especially as the moon, cycles through and gets closer to, these degrees of Pisces, 20 on in, and we're getting close, that it's evident, like, that these people have value, and they're not going to be around forever. The 20th century is rapidly slipping away here. And this is one of those days where, if you want to, and you have the ability to, recognize some of these people, and some of them might even be in your own circle. Some of them might be in the chat. So we recognize you and your contribution to our world, because you've helped build it. And we're here, and we stand on the shoulders of what's come before us. So thank you for that. Let's see what else we have here. And again, we've got some good feeling today, right? We've been in this weird kind of place where clearly this has been a pattern, right? There's been a pattern of conflict and stress and release of tension and surrender. And I've been talking about the easy button and the hard button, and they're not mutually exclusive, right? So you can work hard, you can butt up against the thing that you're butting up against and feel that tension, and feel that that sense of conflict that you have to work through, and then release it. So I think it's a very interesting day in general, energy wise. Okay, let me go back and get my banner up. Let me get my banner up. All right, so this is right to tell you about True Hemp Science, who is the sole sponsor of the show. And True Hemp Science is your one-stop shop for all things CBD. And Chris uses nothing but the best organically sourced CBD material, right? You got your hemp, organically sourced hemp. And not only does he use the best from various places, but his processing of the hemp is fantastic. You will not find a more conscientious and aware practitioner of putting CBD together, and it shows in the result of the product. So if you want to get a goodie bag where you can have little samples of the catalog or the product line, all you got to do is spend $100 or more and 1.5 MINS. That's all you got to do. $100 or more, type in 1.5 MINS, and you will get your goodie bag. Also, $150 more, get you free shipping. There's always a 30-day money-back guarantee. And if you go to truehempscience.com, you can make an appointment with Chris, and he'll work with you and tell you what he thinks the best CBD solution is available for you. And a lot of people in chat have used the product and they are return customers. So that's all you need to know. All right, let's get into our star of the day. This one is really interesting, I have to say. This is a very interesting star of the day for many reasons. Today's True Hemp Science star of the day is Rodney King. Remember Rodney? Can't we all just get along? Can't we all just get along? The video captured by Rodney King, or not by Rodney King, but George Holliday on March 3rd, 1991, changed the world. It was the first example of a viral video. It's kind of interesting. We'll get into more of the George Holliday video thing when we get to that point of the conversation. But let's take a look at Rodney's chart. It's kind of looking like, you know what? It's kind of looking like an eclipse chart, to be honest with you. I mean, here we go. He was born with Mercury retrograde, right? When the eclipse happens, we're going to have the moon in Aries, sun in Aries, Venus will also be in Aries. So, and Jupiter in Taurus. Oh, no, this is his chart. Damn. It had me tripping here for a moment. Saturn in Pisces, Jupiter in Taurus. Like he's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 luminaries that will be in the same sign as the eclipse. Man. So this would have been Rodney King's second Saturn return had he still been here. Wow, what a trip. That's interesting. I wonder if we're going to get a lot of Rodney King energy over the next few days. Well, he'll be in the news. Today would be his birthday, and wow, this is really interesting. Anyway, he's got a really weird chart, and not an easy one, to be perfectly fair. Right? This is a hard chart. You know, he's got the type of chart where, you know, he's going to spend some time in jail or prison or the hospital or both. Because that's what the 12th house is, right? That's what the 12th house is. And if you remember what he looked like after they beat the shit out of him, he had all those injuries to the head. He's all bandaged up. So he's got some Aries affliction there. And just to me, it's fascinating that, you know, the 12th house is the house of secrets, and you know, this stuff comes out, right? And at that time, transiting Saturn was in Aquarius, which represents Aquarius is the networks, right? It's media, it's the airwaves, and Saturn was up there. And lo and behold, that's what was going on in Rodney King's chart. And again, the true note is there as well in Capricorn. So, you know, we have this really interesting exposition of something that's secret and hidden and is out there for the rest of the world to see. But he doesn't have an easy chart. You know, eventually he made a huge settlement. Hello, Jupiter in Taurus. And it also his Jupiter's conjunct Algol, which again is this intersection between the head and the body. And I was trying to figure out like where the "can't we all just get along" comment came from. I would think that it's probably Jupiter in Taurus because it's ruled by Venus, right? And and I remember when he said that he could barely get those words out. Um, so Rodney did okay. I mean, it wasn't like he would you want to get the shit beat out of you and then have a fairly large settlement which could take care of you really up until the day you pass away? I don't know. I don't know if many people would take that as a trade-off, but that's how it got sorted out. And what's also, interesting here is that um in a weird way, he's kind of a precursor to George Floyd. It's like Rodney King is the alpha and George Floyd is kind of the omega of viral video and racial tension. And if you look at his true node, he has his true node in Gemini. We're going to get into that. Um, George Floyd was supposedly killed on May 24th, which is the sign of Gemini. So that kind of links them together. But what I thought was really interesting about this was Mars transiting Mars was on his true node in Gemini, and Mars, of course, is violence, right? It's violence. It's the police, centurions, and somebody is there to capture it all. George Holliday, who was a plumber by trade and had purchased a camera, a video camera. We're going to get into this camera at the end here. Purchased a camera. It was a Sony, and he was on his balcony, and he saw the cops wailing on Rodney King. So he got his video camera out, and he videotaped this thing. And at first, he wanted to give it to the LAPD, and they didn't want to have any. LAPD fucked up, right? Like they could have gotten that videotape and they could have just buried it, but they didn't take the tape. I don't know. I mean, maybe this is just one of those weird acts of, chaos in God, right? Or just chaos in general. So Eris would be somewhere in here in Rodney's chart, by the way. And they passed on the videotape. He sells it to KTLA for $500. And then boom, it goes viral, right? Like that Gemini's communication. So here's a really weird, a really, really weird question. Rodney King was all of this with Mars conjuncting his true node in Gemini. Was Rodney King's purpose being activated here? Right. The LAPD, by the way, at that time was, it's really weird because now we have the complete opposite of the LAPD during the 1990s. Now cops can't do anything. The LAPD of the 90s, they were a different story. So the police chief of LA at that time was Daryl Gates. And Daryl Gates was the guy who created this whole idea of the SWAT unit. And the LAPD was on the forefront of the militarization of the police. And in some ways they had to. They were dealing with gangs, big time gangs and drugs. And, they kind of evolved as a result of that. But Rodney King served as this it's weird, right? So he's almost in some ways like a Christian figure, you know. It's so funny too because what are we talking about? What's been in the news over the last couple of weeks? Like Christ is king, and we're talking about a guy named King, Rodney King, and it's an echo, of course, of Martin Luther King, and we have the again the kind of duality with Gemini. So did this event? This is the time that it happened, right there. This is what was happening in the sky. Did this event trigger Rodney King's life purpose, his raison d'etre? Maybe. Um, the other thing that comes out of this, of course, is the Rodney King riots, and that's where he has the "Can't we all just get along" speech. This is what this picture is from, by the way. Can't we all just get along? Isn't this isn't this Mickey? What's his name? Isn't that who that is? Mickey Willis. Isn't that Mickey Willis? Wasn't he there? I think that might be Mickey Willis. Don't quote me on that, but I think it might be Mickey Willis. But man, right? It's also one of these things where uh, America starts to split. It starts to split. And then on the heels of Rodney King, 3 years later, we have the OJ thing happening, right? And now we've got more of a split, more of a divide. So it's a really interesting, weird time in terms of quote unquote race relations and this whole Gemini piece and the mirror and what happens there is that there's this mirror being held up to police brutality. Now, on the other hand, during that time, there was a lot of incidents where people were out of control on PCP. They were like the bath salts of the day. And when people got cooking on PCP, they were very hard to stop. And a lot of angel dust and PCP was prevalent in LA. Like PCP was a drug of choice amongst the Latino culture. It was in some ways it was more popular than in the black culture. Not that it wasn't. I think it was, but way more prevalent in the Latino culture. I know this because I grew up in San Jose, California, and I was tangentially connected to that world, and the people who were more into it was that group. They weren't the sole. Um, they weren't the sole users. They weren't the sole user group, but it seemed like it was a bit more prevalent in that group. And of course, you had the gang activity in LA at that time, and so these guys would get high, and they'd be out of control. And there are countless stories of taking the nightsticks and hitting them in the shins and shit, and they just keep going, right? So they didn't know if Rodney King was high on PCP. And I don't know if the drug test ever came back. But again, a society that's conditioned to respond to whatever the imminent threat was. And Rodney King was a big guy. He was a big guy. And did they overuse force? The jury said so. But it's this pivotal moment in American history, and it's transiting Mars, right on Rodney King's true node, and eventually, like I said, it leads to the Rodney King riots where 50 people died. over 5 days of rioting because for whatever reason, people didn't think that the cops involved uh, didn't get sent to jail for life. Some got so there were 3 trials. There was the state slash city of LA, state of California. There was a federal trial, which was kind of weird, right? Like there's a federal trial, and I don't know why there was a federal trial because this was a city state case. But there's a federal trial. The FBI wasn't involved. The National Guard were involved. It was LAPD. So I don't know how it translates into a federal trial, but there was one. And then there was a civil trial. There were 3 trials. It's the state trial that triggers the riots. And that's again, there's this relationship between him and George Floyd, the alpha and the omega of the whole thing. There is an impulsive quality to Rodney King's chart. He's got a Mars-Uranus conjunction. You look at a guy like this, you look at his chart, and it's like he didn't have, based on his chart, he didn't have much of a chance. I mean, this is one of those charts where, buddy, you're going to the 12th house, right? You are going to the 12th house, whether it's the hospital, the prison. I remember he was on one of these reality TV shows where it was like some kind of a rehab show. Was it Dr. Drew? Was he on one of those Dr. Drew reality shows? Which again is very kind of 12th housey in some ways. I know that this is probably a cruel thing to say, but getting beaten up by those cops was probably the best thing that ever happened to Rodney King. And let me say why. Number one, his ass wasn't ever going to speed again at 12:30 in the morning. That's number one. Number two, Rodney King reached a type of celebrity that he would never have had in his life with this chart. Number three, he was rewarded some significant compensation. And the way Rodney King's life trajectory was going, he was not going to get there anytime soon. Number four, it did put a spotlight on the LAPD and Daryl Gates. Daryl Gates was not a good dude. So in that regard, I think that they seriously had to review their policing. But again, it's tough. It's like you've got it. You're a cop. It's the 90s. There's coke. There's crack, Bloods and Crips. You got the CIA bringing, fucking cocaine into the United States, and then they got to deal with that, right? I mean, not an easy job. But it also put a spotlight on those areas where there is dramatic overreach. And and there's an impulsive quality. This is theoretically law and order, and this is, anarchy and disorder. And even the outcome in the Rodney King riots are kind of in his chart. And they're named after him. They're named after him. The Rodney King riots. They weren't the Daryl Gates riots. They weren't the Simi Valley cop riots. They were the Rodney King riots. It's a hard legacy. It's a really difficult and challenging legacy. He's got a hard chart. But this moment of destiny where Mars conjuncts his true node, it changes everything. And his life takes on a very different kind of purpose. Weird side note. The people that spotted him speeding on the freeway There was a highway patrol. I'd never heard about this before, but it was a husband and wife team. I did not know that you could have a husband and wife team in the same highway patrol car. I wasn't aware of that. And they were both in the same highway patrol car. That's kind of weird, isn't it? Like, what would happen if something happened to that car? I mean, they had kids. If they're fucked, right? They're just fucked. You at least want to have one parent. I thought that was really weird. In some ways, very Gemini-esque. Um, all right, let's just get into this a little bit here. So, this was the camera that George Holiday captured the video on. And he was pissed because he didn't get anything out of this deal except for $500 and some infamy of being the guy that started the whole viral video craze. And it took him to 2015 to get the damn camera back. So the Rodney King riot happened, or the Rodney King event happened in 1990. It took him 14 years to get that camera back. And there was an auction when the bid was at $225,000. It didn't work. It was non-functional. They ripped it apart. Does come with its original power adapter and battery case. I don't know what this thing sold for, but the bid for it, the starting bid was $225,000. So there you go. There's an artifact that launches us into the 21st century and the viral video concept. What a strange story. All right. Happy birthday, Mr. Quite Frankly. I'll be on with Frank tomorrow, once again, over on his show tomorrow night. And to the rest of you out there, have a blessed day. Make it count. There's a link for 15 minutes. Come on over. We'll keep the conversation going, go a few layers deeper as to what's going on in the realm. And until then, bye for now.